Imagine walking into a dark, subterranean cavern where a group of prisoners has been chained since childhood, forced to stare at a blank wall. Behind them, a blazing fire casts flickering shadows of puppets and objects carried by people walking along a raised walkway. For these captives, the dancing silhouettes are the absolute, indisputable reality. They have no conception of the three-dimensional objects casting the shadows, let alone the blinding brilliance of the sun outside the cave's mouth. This striking imagery, famously known as Plato's Allegory of the Cave, is not just a masterclass in ancient storytelling, it is the ultimate metaphorical gateway into Platonic idealism. At its core, this philosophical framework proposes a radical and unsettling truth. The physical world we touch, see, and experience every day is merely a realm of imperfect shadows, a superficial copy of a much higher, unchangeable, and perfect reality that lies entirely beyond our sensory perception. By challenging the validity of human experience, Plato laid the groundwork for over 2 millennia of Western thought, inviting us to look beyond the immediate clutter of material existence to seek out the eternal, immutable truths that govern the universe. To understand Plato's grand vision, one must look past the physical universe and venture into what he termed the realm of forms, or ideas. Plato argued that every physical object and abstract concept in our world possesses a perfect, eternal blueprint in a non-physical dimension. Take, for instance, a simple wooden chair. It might have a chipped leg, its paint might fade, and eventually it will rot away into dust. Yet, according to Plato, the concept of chairness, the ideal form of a chair, is eternal, flawless, and completely unaffected by the decay of time. The physical chairs we sit on are merely imperfect reflections participating in that singular, perfect form. This applies to everything from geometry, where no hand-drawn circle is ever truly mathematically perfect, to profound human values like justice, courage, and beauty. When we call a sunset beautiful, it is not because beauty originates in the clouds or the light, but because the sunset temporarily mirrors the absolute form of beauty itself. The physical world is characterized by constant change, growth, and decay, a concept Plato inherited from the pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus, who famously remarked that one cannot step into the same river twice. However, Plato was unsatisfied with a universe of pure chaos and instability. He sought an anchor, a realm of permanence, which he found in the forms, drawing inspiration from Parmenides, who argued that true reality must be changeless, unified, and eternal. This dualistic view of existence fundamentally reshapes how we understand knowledge and learning. If the physical world is in a constant state of flux and imperfection, then our senses can never yield true, unshakable knowledge. They can only provide fleeting opinions, beliefs, and sensory illusions. True knowledge, or episteme, can only be achieved by looking inward and using pure, rational thought to apprehend the forms. Plato introduced the fascinating concept of anamnesis, or recollection, to explain how this happens. He suggested that our immortal souls existed in the realm of forms before being embodied in human form. Upon entering the physical world, the trauma of birth causes us to forget this divine wisdom. Therefore, true learning is not the acquisition of brand new information, but a slow, deliberate process of remembering the perfect truths our souls already witnessed. A philosopher, in this sense, is an intellectual midwife, helping the soul uncover the latent knowledge buried within itself through rigorous dialectic and critical questioning. This is famously demonstrated in Plato's dialogue, the Meno, where Socrates guides an uneducated slave boy to solve a complex geometric puzzle simply by asking a series of targeted questions, proving that the boy already possessed the innate mathematical principles within his soul. The metaphysical architecture of Platonic idealism is further illuminated by the analogy of the divided line, which Plato outlines in The Republic. This analogy provides a detailed map of both reality and human cognition, dividing existence into two primary realms, the visible and the intelligible. Each realm is further subdivided, creating four distinct levels of awareness and objects of thought. At the very bottom of this hierarchy is akasia, or imagination and illusion, which deals with reflections, shadows, and artistic imitations. Above that sits pistis, or belief, which encompasses our everyday interactions with physical objects and living things. Together, these two lower levels constitute the visible world, a domain governed by opinion rather than certainty. To achieve genuine enlightenment, the human mind must cross the threshold into the intelligible realm. The first stage of this higher journey is dianoia, or mathematical reasoning, where we use abstract concepts and hypotheses to understand universal truths, though we still rely on visual aids and axioms. Finally, at the pinnacle of the line lies noesis, or pure rational intuition. This is the domain of the forms themselves, understood directly through dialectic without the aid of sensory images. It is here that the mind achieves unmediated contact with absolute truth, culminating in the comprehension of the ultimate form, the form of the good. For Plato, the form of the good holds a supreme and architectonic position within the hierarchy of ideas. It is not merely one form among many, it is the source of all existence, truth, and intelligibility. Plato compares the form of the good to the sun in the physical world. Just as the sun provides light to make physical objects visible and warmth to sustain biological life, the form of the good illuminates the intelligible realm, making the forms knowable to the human mind and giving them their very being and perfection. Without the good, justice would have no value, beauty would have no meaning, and truth would be unattainable. It is the ultimate goal of the philosophical quest, the beacon that draws the soul out of the darkness of ignorance and into the brilliant light of cosmic understanding. To act justly or live a virtuous life, an individual must have a grasp of this supreme form, as it provides the absolute standard against which all human actions, motivations, and institutions must be measured. Platonic idealism does not merely rest in abstract contemplation. It carries profound implications for how human society should be organized. In his seminal work, The Republic, Plato applied the theory of forms to politics and ethics, arguing that the chaotic nature of contemporary democracies stems from leaders chasing the illusions of wealth, fame, and power rather than the form of the good. He envisioned a utopian society ruled not by politicians or warlords, but by philosopher-kings. These unique rulers would be individuals who had successfully escaped the cave of sensory illusion, trained their minds to perceive the eternal form of justice, and could therefore govern with absolute wisdom and selflessness. For Plato, a just society can only exist when its architects align human laws with the immutable cosmic laws of the higher realm. He argued that just as a ship requires a skilled captain who understands navigation, astronomy, and meteorology, a state requires a leader who understands the metaphysical truths of reality. The philosopher-king does not seek power for personal gain. Rather, they accept the burden of governance out of a sense of duty to truth and the well-being of the collective. This political philosophy is deeply intertwined with Plato's conception of the human soul, which he viewed as a microcosm of the state. According to his tripartite theory of the soul, human consciousness is divided into three distinct parts: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. The rational part, located in the head, seeks truth, wisdom, and the contemplation of the forms. The spirited part, located in the chest, is driven by honor, courage, and anger. The appetitive part, located in the abdomen, governs basic physical desires such as hunger, thirst, and sexual gratification. Platonic idealism asserts that justice and harmony, both within the individual and within society, are achieved only when the rational part exercises authority over the other two components, guided by wisdom. When the appetites or the spirited drives usurp control, the soul falls into a state of internal warfare, leading to vice, misery, and psychological dysfunction. Similarly, in the ideal state, the philosopher-rulers represent the rational element, the guardians or soldiers represent the spirited element, and the working class represents the appetitive element. A harmonious society emerges when each class performs its natural function without interfering with the others, under the enlightened guidance of reason. The implications of Platonic idealism also extend into the realm of aesthetics and art, where Plato took a notoriously controversial stance. In the Republic, he argued for the strict censorship of poets and artists, viewing their work as a potential threat to the moral fabric of society. To understand this perspective, one must look through the lens of the theory of forms. If a physical object, such as a bed, is already an imperfect copy of the ideal form of a bed, then a painting of that bed is merely a copy of a copy. It is twice removed from the ultimate reality, making art an imitation of an imitation, or mimesis. Plato feared that art appeals to the emotional and appetitive parts of the soul rather than the rational mind, tricking individuals into falling in love with illusions rather than seeking the truth. He believed that dramatic poetry and tragic plays could encourage citizens to indulge in unbridled emotions, weakening their psychological resolve and disrupting internal harmony. While this view may seem puritanical or authoritarian to modern sensibilities, it underscores just how seriously Plato took the pursuit of truth, arguing that anything distracting the mind from the contemplation of eternal realities should be treated with extreme caution. Centuries after his death, Plato's intellectual legacy continues to pulse through the veins of Western civilization, deeply influencing early Christian theology, Renaissance art, and modern theoretical mathematics. When early Christian thinkers like St. Augustine sought to synthesize Judeo-Christian scripture with classical philosophy, they found an invaluable ally in Platonic idealism. Plato's realm of forms was easily adapted into the mind of God, with the forms serving as the divine thoughts behind creation. The physical world's status as a fleeting, imperfect shadow aligned seamlessly with Christian views on the transience of mortal life and the perfection of the heavenly afterlife. During the Renaissance, the rediscovery of Plato's works sparked a cultural revolution, inspiring artists like Michelangelo and Botticelli to portray idealized human figures that captured transcendent beauty rather than mere anatomical accuracy. Neoplatonic academies flourished, fostering an intellectual environment that viewed the material universe as a ladder leading back to the divine source of all light and goodness. Even in contemporary science and mathematics, the ghost of Plato continues to walk the halls of academia. Whenever a mathematician argues that numbers, sets, and geometric proofs exist independently of the human mind, waiting to be discovered rather than invented, they are operating within a deeply Platonic tradition. This perspective, known as mathematical Platonism, suggests that mathematical objects inhabit an abstract realm of their own, unaffected by human culture or physical laws. Physicists looking for a singular, elegant theory of everything are driven by a fundamentally Platonic conviction that beneath the messy, chaotic manifestations of the physical universe lies a beautiful, unified, and mathematically perfect underlying reality. Even in contemporary popular culture, the core tension of Platonic idealism remains vibrant, echoing through science fiction narratives about simulated realities, matrix-like illusions, and hidden truths buried beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Ultimately, Platonic idealism challenges us to resist intellectual complacency and look beyond the surface of what our senses present to us. It forces us to ask whether the values we hold, the realities we accept, and the systems we live under are true substances or merely flickering silhouettes cast upon a crumbling wall. By separating reality into the transient and the eternal, Plato did not intend to make us abandon the physical world, but rather to inspire us to reform it in the image of the divine. He provided humanity with an enduring blueprint for intellectual and spiritual awakening, urging us to question the shadows dancing on our own modern walls. The pursuit of truth, as envisioned by Platonic idealism, requires profound humility, relentless intellectual rigor, and the courage to turn our gaze away from the familiar, comfortable darkness of the cave, so that we may climb upward toward the blinding, transformative light of ultimate reality.